John G. Kruth is the executive director of the Rhine Research Center in Durham, North Carolina. And he created the Rhine Educational Center for Professional Education in Parapsychology. He is also a parapsychologist who is particularly interested in the art of energetic healing and out-of-body experiences. John has been a researcher at the Rhine Institute since 2009 and the executive director since 2011. He has had a lifelong interest in the scientific studies of ESP and paranormal phenomena and is one of the rare people in the world who can truly say that he is living his dream. Bless his heart. I love that. John, are you with us?
Yes, Maureen, and I am living my dream.
And I love that. I mean, we should all be living our authentic self and living that what we are doing the work is that our dream. But if we all did the work we're all to do, isn't that the dream of it all? Really, it's so nice to meet you.
When your personal interests start to match up with your work life, then everything seems to fall into place. Maureen, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate you inviting me here tonight.
I really appreciate you coming on. And like I said, the Rhine Institute for me has been, like I didn't know what it was until the 80s. And by accident, I came across a book that really helped me at the time because I was having what I didn't know at the time were called PK, psychokinetic. I was crazy. I was a crazy woman. But so here I am. I'm doing the work I do professionally, and that was the beginning of the journey was rough, but so Rhine, it just holds a lovely place in my heart, and I've been seeing it grow and grow, and like what you're the founder of the educational. Now it's the what is it? It's the educational center.
The Rhine Education Center. It's an online school that we started back in 2011. And mainly, Maureen, one of the reasons that I thought that it was important to start this school is because for years I had an interest in parapsychology. I had an interest in the science of parapsychology, and I didn't know where to go to get information about it. I could read journals, and I could find things on the internet, but it was very difficult to find any academic courses that were related to the science of parapsychology. And as I knew, being a person who had a job and was working, I knew that there was no way I could just stop my schedule and start going back to a university. And so I thought the Rhine Education Center should be something for people who have an interest, who maybe have a job already, maybe who are already busy, can tune in and be part of classes, academic and professional classes, taught by parapsychologists, PhDs, other people who have been doing experiments in the field, and really learn about the science of the field, and do it in a time that's convenient for them. So we started this back in 2011, and the courses are going strong.
Right, and I'm sorry, John, I wasn't hearing you all that well, but it's just it's not my hearing, okay? But I understand what you're saying, and I think it's fantastic. So anybody, anywhere in the United States or globally can benefit from this, what you created, correct?
Oh, yes, there are online courses, and we do have weekly broadcasts for the classes. They're live broadcasts, and people can tune in for the live broadcasts from anywhere in the world. We have had students from all over the United States, from Canada, from South America, France, Italy, Africa. Wow. We've had people from all over the world join us for our classes, because not only are they presented live, but we record them so that they can come in later and watch them at their convenience.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, John, I want to, I know tonight, I want to do mind over matter, psychokinetic. I call it psychokinetic because that's how I know psychokinesis, but they call it. But some people say telekinesis. But I do want to address a lot of things because there's so much. Because everything's so cool that is going on, really. But could you give us maybe a little bit of the history? A lot of people don't know, as I do, and I do believe that everybody would like to know all things Rhine, like you said, the history, what started way back.
Sure. Well, the Rhine Research Center is the oldest operating parapsychology lab in the country. It started back in 1935. J.B. Rhine, who was the founder of the labs, traveled to Duke University, and he was a professor at Duke University in their psychology department. J.B. was interested in studying mediums. He wanted to know, there was a big phenomenon at the turn of the 20th century around mediumship. We're talking about people who say that they can speak to spirits. Well, at that time, mediumship was a very different thing than it is today. Back then, it was kind of a Friday night entertainment for people. They would go to a place where a medium was holding their seances in their house. It would be a dark room. There might be a candle lit, but usually it was a very dark room. Faces would appear out of nowhere. Horns would trumpet. And there would be all types of phenomena. It was more entertainment than anything else. But there were some mediums that actually were able to get information that they probably shouldn't have known. And J.B. Rhine wondered, how could they get this information? How could they possibly know these things? Are they truly speaking to spirits? Well, he contacted this man named William McDougall, who was a new head of the psychology department at Duke University, which was a brand new university at that time. He said, I'd like to study this in an academic environment. And yes?
You know, John, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I was wondering, I'm having a hard time hearing you, and I don't know if it's not that I'm saying if your microphone. Are you on a headset? Is your mouth? Because
I have a microphone. Yes.
There it is. You're perfect sounding, and I know.
Okay.
I'm like, wait, he's moving away from me again. I know I do that too because I move around. I'm sorry.
Okay, if you're hearing me better now, that's all the better.
Absolutely, yes, that's perfect. Thank you.
Okay,
I'm
great.
sorry to interrupt. Go on.
Okay. Well, as I was saying, J.B. Rhine ended up coming to Duke University, and his goal was to study mediums, to learn more about mediums and how they were getting this information that they probably should be able to get. Well, as he started to think about it, he said, well, before I can really know if these mediums are speaking to spirits to get this information, I have to know what the limits of their limitabilities are. So can they, for example, Maureen, I came to you as a medium, and you told me all about my Uncle Jake who passed away a couple years ago. Are you getting that information because Uncle Jake's whispering in your ear and telling you secrets? Or maybe you're getting that information from me.
John?
Yes?
There, I can hear you better now when you said yes. I don't know if it's something going on between us two, but I started losing you again.
I'll change my microphone if you want.
I mean, you sound so clear right now, and I know that sometimes the thing I just want to bring up because I want to make sure people can hear, but it's so clear, and then it's like then it moves away, and then I can't hear you.
Oh, so it sounds like there might be some
there might be
noise cancellation going on.
It's always something like this technology, but I mean, you sound perfectly clear right now, and then when you start speaking about the meat of this, then it seems to fade a little bit. So I'm just bringing this up. You can hear me fine, right? Yeah,
I hear you great. Yes.
Maybe. How about this? Let's try this because it might be a technical thing with Skype. Can we call you right back in right now if you hang up? And I
think that would be great because I'll change my microphone as well. I think it might work better.
Great, thank you. I'm sorry, John, but I think that'll be fantastic. So if you hang up now, and it'll be called right back in. Thank goodness. So we'll see you in just a second. We'll hear you. Thanks, John. Okay, so we'll be calling John back in, and I know that it will just be perfect. And everybody can hear it because it's so cool. So he'll be with us in just a moment because we've got lots of cool stuff to talk about.
Yeah, this is going to be great. I didn't realize he was in Durham, North Carolina. That's like a hop, skip, and a jump away from me.
I know. I thought about that. I think that maybe it will all take is to have you sound clear. This technology.
Oh, that would be great.
Are doing this.
Is this working okay?
Duke University is close by there, and they have a long celebrated history of parapsychology. They actually have a parapsychology department. Yeah.
That's what started in the 40s and 30s. I mean, these people were J.B. Rhine were way ahead of their time. John, are you back with us?
I'm back.
Yay! Well, then maybe this will just be the technical gods will just leave us alone.
Well, I know. I told you we do online classes with the online school.
Okay, so I'm sorry about that, but I guess I'm sorry for everything. It's always about me. I control it. It's all my personal power. It's all my. I'm funny. Yeah, it's all my doing. Everybody. Okay, I'm so strong and powerful. John. I was just discussing with one of my co-hosts, there's four of us all together, about how during the time that JB and Louisa, it was the 30s. This was outrageous during that time at Duke University that they're the father. They coined the name of parapsychology. Isn't that so? I mean, that was
Yes, J.B. Rhine, he didn't actually coin the term. It was an old term that was used back in the 1800s, but he repurposed it and named the science parapsychology, and he made it really popular. He also wrote a book in 1935 called Extrasensory Perception and made that term a household name. No one knew that term before, but after J.B. Rhine wrote his book called Extrasensory Perception, he started going on the radio and talking about some of the work they were doing at the labs.
Well, like I said, it was maybe that was the book that I ran across at the library during that time. I didn't have a computer. I didn't have a computer in the 80s, and I found this book. I wasn't looking, and there's this PK. I'm like, this is what the stuff is going on with me. So it was an older book, and it saved my sanity, really. I mean, it still isn't my sound. I didn't know what was going on. So they were really the pioneers. So nobody I don't know how it would be in that time period because they were out of Duke University. They were doing controlled studies from inside, weren't they?
Yes, they were the first. Well, they weren't the first, but they were the most popular laboratory in the country that was doing academic studies. Right. And very controlled experiments on ESP, extrasensory perception. And they're doing it in a controlled way in academic and scientific environments. This was what was so different about the labs back in 1935 when they founded them. And the labs stayed at Duke University, and they continued to study there were three areas that they started out studying. One is telepathy, mind-to-mind communication. Mm-hmm. The second is clairvoyance, getting information about something's hidden, like if something is in an envelope or in another room or in another part of the world, and getting information. Now they call it remote viewing. Right. And a third area that they were originally studying was precognition, getting information through time, being able to tell something about the future. So originally they studied those three areas, which they called ESP, and they used ESP cards, or what we call Zener cards, right? Which you might have seen. They have like the circle, the square, the wavy lines, and the stars.
The Zener cards are pretty popular. I know them. They're very popular. That's where wasn't it with the man he was working with that created those? Somebody.
Yes, there was a man named Carl Zener.
Right.
And that's why we call them Zener cards. He created them not actually to study ESP, but they worked very well to study ESP. So they used these cards to study these three phenomena for quite a few years. And one day, the story goes that J.B. Rhine was in the laboratory, and this man came in. They were very popular. People were coming in from all over the country because it was the only place that people were studying ESP.
Right.
This man came into the lab, and he said, I'm from Las Vegas, and I can control dice.
Right.
And J.B. Rhine said, well, we do things with cards. We don't really do anything with dice. He said, no, really, I can control dice. He said, well, show me. And so they rolled some dice, and the man was getting the numbers that he wanted to get. This is where the beginning of his studies into psychokinesis began. This is when J.B. Rhine tried to see, can people, through some mental means, control physical objects? And he started out by trying to determine whether he controlled dice rolls or not.
Right. That's what I read. That's when I read that. I remember reading about that, the guy, the dice controlling, and that was and that's when I go, aha, that makes sense of what's going on. If it's a controlled, I wasn't not controlling anything properly. But it was awful. I thought the demons of demons were coming down on me, and I never, and this was just brand new, but this is what opened me up to what I'm doing today. And a lot of people don't know that about me. It was and that's when I read about the dice. So you could focus on something, and the dice you could focus on your dice coming up at the same. So that was a very successful study, wasn't it? With the dice, wasn't that pretty successful?
Yes, all of the different phenomena that I just mentioned, telekinesis or psychokinesis, clairvoyance, precognition, and telepathy, they found that there was statistical evidence that this was happening throughout society.
Right.
All of their experiments demonstrated that even though there was a small effect, it was very statistically significant, and there was something going on that was beyond chance.
Mm-hmm.
So they continued these studies for a number of years and started to refine some of their experiments. For example, originally they had people handling the dice and throwing them themselves. They started to have them use cups to make it so they weren't actually holding the dice. And then finally they created what they call an automatic dice rolling machine, which was a little motorized mechanism that would spin around and it would roll the dice by itself. Mm-hmm. So the person was not involved with it at all. This was in order to refine the mechanisms to take out any chance that there might be cheating, whether it's purposeful or not, going on. And they still found that there was an effect.
Yeah, they've changed some of the procedures from the 30s or the 40s to other types of. There's still psychokinetic studies going on right now, where.
Oh, yeah.
It has to do with when they're in an emotional state of loss and such like that. I think that's what my stuff was happening. There's different times or they think that there's certain personalities that it happens or whatever, but they do use different types. I mean, I know about that machine that you just spoke about because I remember reading about that. And nowadays, what do they do with their... do they have the studies like that going? I'm using the dice as an example, I guess, but well, I guess what I'm asking is for psychokinetics, and I read that Sally, Dr. Feather is doing, where she wants people to talk about any experiences they've had. Are you guys still doing studies on PK of seeing people actually under controlled studies trying to do this, or is that?
Oh yes. We're, the studies have definitely evolved in about 80 years since the Rhine was originally opened back in the 30s. They've evolved a great deal, and they've changed quite a bit. And Maureen, you keep alluding to your personal experiences, and I'm very intrigued and interested because I was talking about people purposely trying to control dice to make them come up a certain way. But there's also what we call RSPK, which is recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis.
Yes.
It's unintentional. Yeah. It's when people have certain activities, maybe certain emotions or certain activities in their life that cause things to move around them, and it's not happening on purpose. They're not doing it on purpose.
Right.
It may be unconscious. And so we do studies of this because it's not as rare as you might think it is. But I'm interested. Is this type of experience you were having?
Oh, it was, it was a time, when I reflect back, yes, exactly. But I was, it was, this stuff had been going on all my life, and then I started self-medicating at a very young age because I figured out later why. Because then if something was moving or something, things weren't flying all over the air, right? But when things would move, I could just blame it on, I was I had something in my system that was making me see these things that weren't really happening. I think that happens to a lot of people, that are sensitive, and I didn't have a family that embraced it very well, what was going on, But what was happening is with me, I think it was like a big opening of the work that I have been doing for 25 years professionally is now. But the PK stuff was I was taping. The table was moving. I mean, not like spinning, but it would move Things were falling down all the time, but the chairs, things would spin. And one time, so I was taping, like taping things in, and everything, I was self-medicating. I suddenly just stopped. I didn't mean for anything. I stopped doing everything. It was just like, I didn't mean, it's just like I was just enhanced, but I was scared too. I was very scared of what was going on. And I had a roommate.
Yeah.
Anytime, it wasn't certain things I was trying to figure out, but there was one thing I read in that book. They were trying to figure out if there's ESP connected with Psychokinesis, with PK. And they don't know. I remember reading that. And so, is that true? My understanding was they were trying to figure out, when I was reading that book, if there was they were trying to figure out if there's a connection between the ESP with the psychokinetic. Like when someone dies, you hear about a clock stopping or something, for instance.
Yes.
That could be some form of, an ESP with the clock stopping when at the time someone dies. Correct? Is that my understanding correct?
That's one of the things that we would probably consider psychokinesis.
Right.
The ESP is what we consider ESP is something that is perceptive. For example, mind-to-mind communication, right? Communication or perceiving information through time or getting information, viewing something from a distance. It's all related to perception. Right. Whereas psychokinesis is more of an active process. It's not a perceptive process, but it's actually active, where it seems that a person is actually having an effect on the external world. So that's the difference between them. Some people have abilities in both areas. Some people have it naturally expresses itself as their ESP might express itself in an active way. Mm-hmm. But they are different phenomena in the way that we study them. But it is interesting what you're describing, because the one thing that I'm picking up is something that I find all the time. I've met other people who have had these types of experiences, and it scares them.
Yeah.
It really upsets them. They don't know why these things are moving or why things might be happening around them. And one of the things that you asked about current or more recent research, one of the things that I've been focusing on is how can we help people who have these types of experiences? How can we help to calm them down and relax them so that these things don't happen, or at least to get used to them to the point that they're comfortable? One of the things that we've been doing at the Rhine, it is a research laboratory. And we do have current research projects going on in the field of parapsychology. But one of the other things we do is we try to create a community. There are people all over the country and all over the world who are having experiences like this. Mm-hmm. And it scares them. A lot of times they don't have anyone to talk to. If they do speak to someone about it, they either think they're crazy or they get feedback saying, the devil's in you or something like things of this nature. And they don't feel like they have anywhere that they can safely speak about these things. At the Rhine, we try to provide that community. We try to provide that environment so people can share their experiences and learn more about the science behind it, learn what we're doing, and learn how much of their experiences are actually supported by scientific research. And PK has been supported by scientific research, more than just life.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I was raised Catholic, and I was thinking, okay, the demons and devils are rearing their heads. But, it was, like I said, just one book I happened to run across. I didn't know what I was looking for, and that's why I hold such just a lovely place in my heart for the Rhine. And I just do, and it will always be there, because it just, from reading PK something, it's like, wow, this is it. And I wish, at that time, you're talking about having a community. That's so important when things like that are going on with people.
Yes.
It was my journey, whatever the situation was. I did later go to UCLA during that time period. They were doing some, controlled study, and I did do some things up there, and I felt better. But when I reflect back, I was sick too. I was extremely ill from it. Mm-hmm. And so it felt like so much peace. I had so much peace when I read this book. There was actually something that this I could name it or whatever. I kind of miss the days, but I do like doing the controlled things like Nina and the Russian woman. She's a great example.
Nina Kalugina, yes.
Yes.
Kulajira, yes.
Oh my God! I mean, and so we all can do this. Everybody listening, I mean, we all can. You take matchsticks or something and try to move. We have our minds are so powerful, but there's different times where emotionally, I don't know. Like you said, there's different research that goes on, but we all when I walk lights, my light bulbs don't work very well in my homes. They usually blow out.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I don't feel that it's poltergeist stuff too, because that's another thing that could be part of it. Correct? Sometimes.
Well, when you say poltergeist, it's and it's funny, Maureen, when you talk about psychokinesis, a lot of people get these impressions of like Carrie, or some of the movies that they've seen where they might see the movie Poltergeist, and you see objects flying all over the place and large objects being moved. This is not the way that we see psychokinesis working.
Exactly.
Typically, like you said, some people do move things as matchbooks or matchsticks and small little objects of this nature, but we typically don't see large objects moving on purpose. Right. Now, occasionally, what we do call poltergeist activity. Poltergeist was originally thought to be the activity of a ghost or a spirit. Mm-hmm. Moving things around and throwing them around. This is where the name came from. Poltergeist in German means noisy ghost or loud ghost. Mm-hmm. But as the studies went on, and especially in the 1950s, there was a man named William Rowe who began investigating a lot of activity that was considered poltergeist activity. And what they found is that typically, when they found these activities, there was one person who was always present when things started moving. Yeah. And this is where the term RSPK, or recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis. Psychokinesis that happens over and over again in a very spontaneous way. It's unintentional. And he found that in many situations, there was someone, oftentimes it was someone who was under a lot of anxiety or stress.
Right.
And in many cases, it was a younger person, someone who was in their teenage years, but not every case. And what they found is this type of person was typically in the middle of all of the activity. They started calling this person a poltergeist agent. And this is the type of thing that really is disturbing to people. If they are the poltergeist agent and things are happening, they don't know why, because they're not doing it on purpose. Right. And they're trying to figure out how it's happening and why it's happening. And so this for over the years has involved, and poltergeist agents have moved things as large as, like, the telephone will fly across the room.
Right.
Dishes will fall off the shelves. They had one case in Miami where it was they were in Miami in the 70s, and it was a factory, a big warehouse that had a whole bunch of little touristy statues and ashtrays and things that they used to give away to tourists out of Miami. And things were falling off the shelves and breaking all the time. And they found that there was a young man who was there, who was working at the factory, and it was always around him that these things were moving, and they seemed to jump off the shelf.
Yeah.
When no one was near them.
It's like. So. It's like I didn't sign up for that was happening too with me, but that was happening when I was a younger child. There were 6 kids in our family, and that's why I self-medicated. I went in the direction of what else was I? And at a young age, I could not handle this because they were witnessing things, and they were just like, "Oh, you're just kind of weird," Oh my God! But I'm not Carrie. But little things would fall down. Thing I didn't know why, but it was usually when I was younger, before I was even 10, it would happen. So I wanted to stop that all. But it came back
and so many people, they really want to be able to do PK. And then there's other people that it happens around them, and they really want it to stop. And there's very little information available for people to help with these situations. There are very few psychologists or counselors in the country who are able to speak intelligently on these topics.
Right.
And this is one of the things that I've been trying to pursue myself in research in parapsychology. how can we help people who have these sorts of experiences? And one of the things that we've been looking at is to teach them to meditate.
Yeah.
Help them to relax. Because often it's anxiety that brings on these types of events.
And that's exactly...
For simple meditation, it can help.
And that is very true. And that's exactly what I was all about. I know that I'm always very honest about my stuff. Really honest. I was a mess and all over the place. And I agree with that. And now that I'm, 30 years older, things aren't as, eventful, but I utilize the tarot cards, and it's interesting because I got into that. I'm self-taught, but I started thinking maybe because of the movement of the tarot will just fall into place. It's not like I read them like I read up from a book. I feel that PK might be part of that too. Do you follow me?
Yeah, I do. I do follow you because one of the things when you think about the different types of psychic abilities, if someone has an ability to use telepathy, maybe use precognition. People use different tools to do this. You always have this image of a psychic with a crystal ball. Well, what is the crystal ball? The crystal ball is just a tool to enable them to access this part of themselves, to enable them to listen to these subtle signals that they're getting so that they feel comfortable expressing them. And tarot may be a similar type of tool for you, where it may allow you to access these parts of yourself. And through some type of psychokinesis or even unconscious movement, the cards move into the position that is appropriate to express what you're perceiving.
Exactly right. I'm not saying I'm one of those people. I don't say I believe in anything. All I know is what I know, and so it's almost like in a way, I do look at it in that way that maybe unconsciously, whatever the way it's happening, I came to that and I came to grips with that and I was okay. Anyway, but I'm really glad we're talking about this because anytime people out there having these experiences, they can go to you're on at the end of the interview, I'm going to talk about, the website, website address, I guess, and also on your guest page, it's there. But people, it's like you said, there's a community of people that if you're having these experiences, not just PK, but there's a community, you can get involved. That it's something that's such a great resource there. And what you're doing is, it sounds like you created something even more so. In addition, right? I mean.
Well, we had originally the Rhine was completely research oriented. It was completely scientific and academically oriented, and I can't take credit for developing the community.
Right.
It's the community has developed over its own for years and years. That people started writing in letters, asking questions, and wondering. They would send their experiences to the Rhine, and people would respond to them and try to help them. People call us. And, we try to help them and answer questions for them. We don't do a lot of experiments many people call us and say, oh, can you prove that we're psychic? No, we don't do that sort of thing. We don't certify people as being psychic or not. And oftentimes, when we have experiments, we do advertise and ask people to be part of them. But we have many people who, and so that's the experimental aspect, but we have many people who call who just really want to know what's going on and want to understand it better. So on our website, we have a place that you can contact the Rhine and submit a form that will talk a little bit about your experience. And we have different researchers at the Rhine, including Sally Rhine Feather, who I think you mentioned a little earlier. It's J.B. Rhine's daughter, who is following in the footsteps of her mother, Eliza Rhine, and gathering this information and trying to understand more about what these experiences are like. We literally have phone calls and emails coming in every week, and it's been going on for 80 years. So there's a lot of different information that has come through the Rhine, and we try to match that up with the research that's going on in the field to give people a feeling of comfort that they're not alone. Other people are having these experiences also. And here's some things that we found that may be useful. So this is the community that we've tried to develop.
It doesn't get any better than that to have something like that available. John, we're going to take a short commercial break from our sponsor, and we'll be right back with John and Kruth and myself and everybody listening. So one moment, please.
A new era in psychic services has begun. PsychicAccess.com. You can connect with our psychic advisors by telephone or chat 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All of our psychic advisors are interviewed, fully verified, and accuracy tested, assuring you quality service. We're living in some very troubled times right now. More and more, the world's problems are affecting us on a personal level. You don't have to deal with this alone. Our highly accurate psychics, caring advisors, and talented mediums can help with situations you are currently experiencing and can let you know what the future may hold for you. All new customers get a free 6-minute reading. All you have to do is register. Why not visit us now and get a free reading at PsychicAccess.com.
And we're back. And we're back with this. I just love John being our guest here, and I just love the Rhine Institute, and I love the fact that you actually created, in addition to, I know that you're not the founder, we know that, but you created something even that additionally just adds to it. John, I wanted to ask you, there was something you'd sent me a couple things, and I'm always fascinated because I've done a Gansfield. I never can pronounce it right. Gansfield? I've done that before.
The Gansfield experiment, yes.
I did that years ago. I was doing a paranormal. I have some paranormal friends, pals that are, investigators, and that was pretty interesting. And I had no clue what it was when I first heard about it. So that's become. I'd never heard about it. Has that been around a long time?
Well, the Gansfield actually was beginning to be developed in the early 70s, and it became a full-fledged, very regularly used experimental process in the 1980s. So it's been around for over 35 years. Mm-hmm. And the Gansfield is a very interesting procedure because it grew out of a study that was done in New York in the 1960s on dream research. They were trying to determine whether people were more psychic when they were dreaming, when they were asleep. Mm-hmm. And so what they did is they had people who would come into a lab, they would sleep for the night, and then they had somebody else that was there who was looking at a picture and trying to send information to the person who was sleeping. And after they were dreaming for a while, they'd wake them up and say, what were you dreaming about? And they'd try to see if there was any match between what they were dreaming about and the information that they were trying to send in. Well, what they found is that people were seeming to get a lot more hits than they would expect. They were getting information in their dreams. And it wasn't just, like for example, if someone was looking at a picture of the Grand Canyon, the person dreaming wouldn't get to see a picture of the Grand Canyon. They'd actually feel like they were in the Grand Canyon, that they were on a little burrow going down. They'd feel it was really hot. They could smell everything. It was, they felt like they were part of this full scene. Well, this immersion is what seemed to be best when they were getting their ESP. It's when they did the best on their ESP test, when they got full immersion. So they wanted to reproduce this because when you do these dream tests, it takes a long time. If someone goes to sleep for the night and they wake up and they don't have any dreams or you don't get any hits, you got to wait a whole other day before you do it. And so they wanted to find a way to do it more quickly. So they invented this Gansfield procedure. And the Gansfield procedure, what we do is we take two people and we put them in separate rooms. And the rooms are electronically shielded. There's a shielded for sound. And one of the people we put in a very comfortable chair, a nice lounge chair. It's very soft and relaxing. We put headphones on them and give them pink noise, which is similar to white noise. It sounds kind of like waves. Put half ping pong balls on their eyes, and then shine a red light on the ping pong balls. If you've ever been outside in the summertime in the sunlight, you close your eyes, it's a little bit red. Well, you get the same impression in the Gansfield room, whether your eyes are open or closed. So we have them in this quiet room with white noise or pink noise going through their headphones. Their visual field is consistently a red color, and we play some relaxation technique, put them through a relaxation technique, help them to get into a bit of an altered state of consciousness. Once they've reached that state, we say, okay, now just start talking, whatever comes to mind, stream of consciousness. Meanwhile, in another room, another isolated room, we have another person who's looking at videos, or a single video over and over again. It's about 45 seconds long, and they're trying to send information about that video to the person in the other room. So we have a sender trying to send video information to the person in the other room who's isolated and who's just speaking stream of conscious. So at the end of the experiment, once this has gone on for a while, we have a video and we have all the information that this person has provided. We then show them a series of different videos. We show them the target video, which was being sent, and 3 other videos, which are decoys. And we ask them to pick which one of these might be the video that was being sent to them. Now, when you're talking about 1 out of 4, you're talking one is the correct one. We have 3 decoys. There's 4 targets. You would expect them to get it right 25% of the time, 1 out of 4. What they found in doing these experiments is that something about this altered state of consciousness that was being evoked through the Gonfeld procedure was allowing people to get hits more than 25% of the time, closer to 35% of the time. Now, that's a difference between 1 out of 4 and 1 out of 3. This is a huge statistical difference. And it tells that there's something about this Gonfeld procedure that enables people to hear these subtle signals, to perceive these subtle signals that might be coming from the other person and express their ESP.
Yeah, I found it. It was interesting because I had the ping pong balls and it was red. It was red light flashing. Yes, and it was quite interesting. But I don't think we actually did it in the way that you're talking. I understand what you're saying. It's even more interesting. But I didn't know it came from. I love the fact you talked about why it came to be, and. So that's pretty successful, what you're saying. Are you doing any research? Is there any research going on right now with that?
The Gonfeld, we're not doing any current research in the Gonfeld, although we do have Gonfeld rooms and we occasionally use them.
Right.
But our research has gone into other areas now.
I do want to ask you because I just love it. I love the. We have a lot of people that are. Well, my daughter, for one's in Columbia. She's a Columbia master. She's a neuroscience, and she's in this special brand new program at Columbia that's bringing in science with spirituality. It's time to merging worlds. Finally, merging worlds. And so I want to ask you about the quantum physics and psi. Because we only have we only have 5 minutes or so left. I wish I'll have you on again. I must.
Well, quantum physics, we should be able to cover that in 5 minutes. It's a very complex topic, but I can say that there's a lot of people who believe that there are certain aspects of quantum physics that help to explain psi or explain ESP. There's 2 major areas that people talk about. One of them is related to what they call the double slit experiment, and that has to do with light having properties of both a wave and a particle. This is standard physics, and it's been going on for many years that they've known this. And they don't know why light appears to behave as a wave and a particle. But what they do know is that if you don't watch, light will behave like a wave. But as soon as you try to see, hey, I know I'm shooting photons, so where is the photon going? As soon as you try to look at it as a photon, then it starts to behave like a particle. This is an example of what we call the observer effect. This is when the process of actually observing or looking at an event has an effect on the event itself. So light behaves like a wave when you're not looking, but when you are looking, it seems to behave like a particle. So this demonstrates that that consciousness, the conscious act of doing observation, has an effect on reality. And I know you were talking a little bit about psychokinesis and how it might affect the world around you. This may be an additional mechanism to help explain. If we can understand the observer effect, we might be able to understand more about how psychokinesis works as well. Did we cover quantum physics there?
I was on mute.
Maureen,
I was on mute. I'm going, wow, that's fascinating, and no one's listening. Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was listening. I didn't want my breathing. I wanted, no, and it's perfectly well said on that. I wanted to ask you if you could, because there's a lot of things I want you to get out. What's important about if. You mentioned, you sent me some things. I thank you very much. That would be of interest to, put out there, and some things about any educational, like educational opportunities in parapsychology or current research. Well, we spoke about that a little bit, but anything that's going on that you would like to tell, our listeners about, because we do have a lot of people that listen to our archives later as well. Many, many, many. Or sure. All educational opportunities in parapsychology. I think that's a good one, too. If you could tell us about, or you can just sure. Tell us about anything you want.
Well, I could talk to you. Sure, I'll talk about some things. We talked a little bit about the Rhine Education Center, and that's at www.rhineeducationcenter.org. We have a listing of the different courses that we have there, and we have new courses that will be starting up towards the end of September. We have courses that are related to everything from, we have a general introduction to parapsychology. We have courses on investigating apparitions, hauntings, poltergeists, what the correct way to go about this from a scientific perspective. Good. We have classes on mediums and precognition, premonition, but we're not teaching people to be psychic here. What we're doing is we're teaching people about the scientific work that's being done. We're trying to bring it into a academic type of environment. There's fun courses. Don't misunderstand me. They aren't dry, boring courses. They're really fun courses. They're interesting topics. And we have usually 4 quarters every year where we teach courses. Now, besides this, we also have events that we do at the Rhine on a regular basis. And about every other week, we have speakers that come in from different areas that are specialists on different topics. We have parapsychologists who talk about the science, but we also have people who, for example, a few weeks ago, we had 2 people who say they're energetic healers, and they've been doing this their whole life. And we had a discussion, what's it like to be an energetic healer? What types of processes do you go through? What do you do whenever you're doing your energy healing? And how has it changed you through your life? We've had people come in and talk about near-death experiences, people who they've actually died. Their heart has stopped.
Wow.
And they've had the experience of leaving their body and traveling and then returning to their body and coming back to life. And they talk about their near-death experiences and what it's like and how it's affected them since they've had that experience. So we have speakers come in, and they're in Durham, but we also simulcast it, and it's available on the internet. We record all of these. And on the Rhine website, we have what we call a media library, which is videos of all of the past events that we've had at the Rhine. Now, these are open and available. We have some that are open and available to everyone, but we have over 80 events that are available to our members. So if you become a member of the Rhine, you can get access to a lot of information by speakers, people like Russell Targ, who was part of the remote viewing program back in the 1970s. And part of the government psychic spying program.
Yes, I remember that he was I know who you're talking about. Yes, very credible.
And we have many different speakers.
Stargate. What was it called? 1972. Was it the 1970s? They
were Stafford Research. They were at Stafford Research Institute, and they were studying remote viewing. And it continued through the 1990s, and eventually it was named Project Stargate.
That's it.
That was and that was a government psychic spying program that was done. And there are some of the people who were part of that program who were psychic spies working for the intelligence agencies in the United States who have come and spoken at the Rhine as well.
Well, so it's like Men Who Talk to Ghosts. I'm sorry. But it was based on the Men Who Talk. It was a little bit about that. I'm not making fun of it. But in fact, remote viewing, I did get certain, I've done some, I did some work and training in that, but I'm not classifying myself as a remote viewer. And I do feel that is definitely, didn't the Russians have that up on us first? So they said something was going on there, but...
The Russians were also doing remote viewing, and in fact, I believe there's a book that just came out by one of our colleagues named Ed May that explores remote viewing from the Russian side as well. He's worked with the Russians quite a bit.
It's amazing, and you can't deny the science. I love how you say, like I said, my daughter, she's a young girl, but it's interesting. Times are changing. Is the science is coming together with these things that you can't deny that are truth. Is just what it is. So combining both worlds, or colliding the worlds, or in between worlds. But how exciting is that? You're in a great position of it too, because a lot of people that are scientists are really opening up. Yes,
and a lot of the traditional sciences are still look at things from a very materialistic perspective. But people are starting to recognize, we were talking a little bit about quantum physics before. It's a big topic. But people in different sciences are starting to realize that this is not a world that exists outside of us. We are part of it. And our consciousness, our beliefs, our activities, I mentioned the observer effect. We have an effect on the world around us.
Collectively,
and
yes.
We are. And there's also a project called the Global Consciousness Project, which is looking at the activity around the world and how events like 9/11 disaster or the tsunami that hit Japan or even the World Cup soccer tournament draws everyone's attention into one area or to many people around the world. And they're able to use instruments to read this. This project has been going on for a number of years, and they're finding a lot of evidence that we are all connected.
Yep.
We are all one. We are all having an effect. And imagine if people started to realize the effect that we are all having on each other and how your thoughts, how your feelings, and how your actions affect more than just you and the people around you, but have an effect on the whole world. Imagine how people would start to act differently. Right. And this is what we're trying to continue to do with our scientific work, is to make people aware that we are all connected.
Yes, that's what it's all about. Well, John, thank you so much for joining us, and I want to have you back on again. I'll give it some time. I won't bother you, but I'd love to have you come back again so we could, talk about some other things. I really appreciate it. I know everybody else does, and also the website at Rhine is www.rhine.org, and it's also on the guest page. You guys can all find it. And thank you so much, John, and have a great evening. And let Sally know I send my well wishes. She's just lovely. She was on many years ago, so and I love the work you guys are doing.
Thank you for having me, Maureen. It's been enjoyable. And next time we do this, we'll have to try to avoid the psychokinetic effects on the Skype system. Yes.
We'll just forget about that and do the other things that we didn't cover. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Maureen.
Thank you. Okay. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
Hello, my name is Res Miranda. If you're having relationship, career, or life issues, I'm inviting you to experience what it's like to have access to professional, highly accurate psychics and spiritual advisors you can trust to care and help you. Register now to get your free 6-minute reading by telephone or chat. Get answers. Get access. Psychic access. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. PsychicAccess.com.